One area jail now preventing visitation again less than a month after it reopened. Tonight we hear from the sheriff about its COVID policy. Plus, the head of education for the state made a stop in College Station today. He weighs in on the masked debate in the classroom. And Krhd News is teaming up for a two-day blood drive with Baylor Scott and White here in Brazos County. We see why the need is more important than ever before. Your Krhd News starts right now.
Connecting the Brazos Valley, this is KRHD News.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Hallie Jones. Grimes County deciding to close visitation to jail inmates because of a local surge in COVID-19 cases. The jail had reopened to visitors starting in early July after being closed off during most of the pandemic. The decision to close came after two of his staff members, including the county jail administrator, had gotten sick with the coronavirus.
We opened up in the recent past with small baby steps, visitation with caution. So rather than take a chance, we decided to go ahead and hold it off. We're going to reserve everything until September 1.
So far, the sheriff's office has been able to keep COVID-19 out of the inmate population throughout the entire pandemic. Inmates continue to undergo COVID screenings. The sheriff says he will revisit the situation at the end of this month. School is right around the corner, and the head of the TEA was in town earlier today. TEA Commissioner Mike Morath toured the Charlotte Sharp Children's Center today. He wants to make sure communities have the best resources possible for its children. He also weighed in on masks and how they are making sure students and staff stay safe this upcoming school year.
We had classrooms open all year long last year, and in various parts of the state you saw normal sized classrooms, you saw varying masking practices, and you saw extremely low incidence of any kind of school-based spread of COVID. And this was different than what everyone was expecting, but this is in fact what it turned out to be true.
Commissioner Morath says the school environment is safe in Texas, and the decision to mask up or not in school is up to each family in the interest of their children. Well, as children return to school, health experts are warning we'll see a rise in COVID cases. Former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb says states in the northern U.S. specifically will likely see an uptick in cases in the coming weeks. This comes as pediatric hospitals become full due to COVID. And despite the governor's order, Dallas ISD announcing a temporary mask mandate for all staff, students, and visitors. It begins tomorrow. The district cites the CDC and Dallas County COVID-19 alerts levels being raised to red. The superintendent says the move is not political.
It's not about the governor. It's not personal. I get along with him, and he's appointed me to a couple of commissions. We just happen to have a healthy disagreement on the perspective here. And my message is I'm trying to take care of the safety and health of our students. And he's got a big job to do, and so on this matter, we don't agree.
Houston ISD officials say they're interested in exploring a mask mandate as well. Their board is set to vote on it on Thursday. Texas House Democrats can come back to Texas without the threat of arrest. A Travis County judge issued the order blocking the arrest. The order only lasts 14 days unless extended by the judge. Last month, arrest warrants were signed for House Democrats who left the previous session for Washington, D.C. The court will hear arguments on the temporary injunction later this month.
It's hard to believe that 20 years have passed. My brother Harvey was just 35 years old when he was killed on 9/11. 20 years passage of time. He's still very much an inspiration for us. He's part of our lives.
What's now the National September 11th Museum and Memorial is the final resting place for Anthony Gardner's brother, Harvey, as well as 40% of the victims in the World Trade Center attack. Ticket sales to visit the site plummeted by nearly $45 million during the pandemic.
We will never break. We will never break. Build on a foundation strong enough to stay.
In conjunction with the 20th anniversary of the attacks, there are new fundraising efforts and a national campaign encouraging reflection and action. The PSA features a young girl whose grandfather died in the attacks, drawing attention to generations who have no memory of that day. The museum's president says equally as important as teaching history is remembering how America reacted.
The response was profound compassion born of shared grief. It was empathy. It was a sense that we were in this together. It was the coming together. People who hugged strangers on the street just because they knew everyone was feeling the same pain and shock and grief. It was a moment where hope was palpable in the face of adversity, where we understood that we would be resilient, we would rebuild, and we would remember.
Now, the goal is to bring back more visitors to the National September 11th Memorial and Museum. There's also a 20th anniversary commemorative ticket for sale to benefit the Never Forget Fund, so more people can learn about those lost.
People like my brother who all they can do was try to comfort their coworkers. They knew they weren't going to be able to get out of their offices. And so in that final time, they showed each other compassion.
You can learn more about the 20th anniversary efforts at 911memorial.org. Next in our lineup, there are new efforts to get more teachers, especially those of color, into classrooms. How changes to a grant program and new interest in community recruitment programs could help.
2 inmates from Leon County are on the run tonight. When we return, we find out where law enforcement might think they're hiding. 2 inmates are expected to be in Anderson County tonight after escaping from their work detail and assaulting a state trooper. The Leon County Sheriff's Office says Kevin Collar and Kevin Webb escaped and stole a truck Friday morning. The owner of the truck says a gun was inside when it was stolen. The truck was found in Conroe. Police say around the same time they found the truck, another person reported their vehicle stolen. The 2 are also accused of hitting a Texas trooper with that vehicle. Well, the need to donate blood is more important than ever, as experts say this past year and a half has been the worst for blood donations. This week, KRHD News is teaming up with Baylor Scott & White Medical Center in College Station to hold a 2-day blood drive. I met with staff from Baylor Scott & White who are encouraging the community to come out and donate. Rebecca Green has been a blood donor for a number of years.
I have given blood probably over 20 times and never had any problems.
At a time where blood donations have been scarce mainly due to the global pandemic, Green thinks back to the first time she witnessed the power of blood donations play in saving patients' lives.
We had a patient that came in one night who was losing blood quicker than we could give it to him. And that blood was going to save his life. I remember just that walk back between the lab and my department and seeing that family in the waiting room and realizing it doesn't matter that we have great nurses here, it doesn't matter that we have great doctors. The fact is that we may run out of blood and he could pass without it.
Baylor Scott & White holds blood drives every 2 months in the Brazos Valley, and while donating blood can be intimidating to some, Green says the reward is priceless.
You can save multiple lives from one donation, and that could very well be you or someone that you really care about. You could be that person in that waiting room, and they may not have the blood they need to treat your family member, and I don't ever want to be in that situation, so I'm going to try my best so that way that doesn't happen.
And no matter your blood type, you will make a difference with your donation.
So even though I'm O negative and that means I'm the universal donor, there are so many other blood types that are needed, and especially there are a couple of people that have these weird things on the surfaces of their red blood cells and they respond better to blood from other people. So really a variety of people are needed to donate and to make sure that people get what they need from blood donation.
The next blood drives are from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. this Thursday at Baylor Scott & White Medical Clinic on University Drive and Friday at Baylor Scott & White Hospital in College Station. For more information and to schedule your appointment to donate, visit our website. Well, billions of dollars will soon head to FEMA. The Biden administration announced it's sending $5 billion to fund grants to help states prepare for extreme climate-related disasters. The funding announcement comes after a report released from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change showing the world is already 1.1 degree warmer than pre-industrial levels. It also states that we're running out of time. Well, now let's get a check of the weather with First Alert meteorologist Caleb Chevalier.
Parts of the Brazos Valley had that heat advisory expire at 7 p.m. today. That would have been Madison County, Grimes, Brazos, and Burleson counties. But we still have Milam, Robertson, and Leon counties that have that heat advisory in effect until 8 p.m. tomorrow. Those areas could be dealing with a heat index of 105 plus during the afternoon for Tuesday, whereas The rest of the area is going to be hot, maybe just shy of that advisory criteria, though. Tonight, our lows will be around 77 degrees, at least in Bryan-College Station. But we've got 74 there in Cameron, 75 in Hearn, and 74 in Rockdale. So tomorrow, again, this is going to be kind of splitting hairs. It'll be hot no matter where you are. 96 in Bryan-College Station, 95 in Anderson, Franklin 95 degrees, and Rockdale 93, but it's these three counties that have that heat advisory for tomorrow as well. And it could be that the National Weather Service will go ahead and issue a new one for Bryan-College Station tomorrow, but as of right now, one is not in effect. So tomorrow, I'm not really anticipating much in the way of any rain activity. If we do see a very brief shower, it'd be so isolated that I'm calling it a less than 20% chance. So pretty much predominantly dry and sunny throughout Tuesday. And then Wednesday comes along and it's more of the same thing, equally hot. Certainly with a mix of some sun and clouds. Nice breezes, though. That's one thing that'll help us out. Winds out of the south, about 10 to 15 miles per hour. But I'm not anticipating rain to be in the area on Wednesday. And finally, for speaking of the winds, well, they've calmed down a little bit for now. So we're seeing those at about overnight 5 to 7 miles per hour. But they'll be back out of the south at about 10 to 15 miles per hour tomorrow, which is one thing that could help it feel a little bit more tolerable outside. So a trio of 96-degree days coming up Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, complete with sunshine. We will watch a small window for some possible rain chances over the weekend. It doesn't look like a great chance right now, but it's there, and then we'll dry out again beyond Monday with highs in the mid-90s.
As teacher shortages continue to be a concern, the Education Department is hoping an overhaul of a grant program for future teachers will attract more of them to the profession. It recently added more flexibility to the Teach Grant program. Students can get up to $4,000 a year if they plan to teach high-demand subjects in an underserved school. Students in the past have had issues with their grants becoming loans. Now the Education Department says that will only happen if a student runs out of time to complete 4 years of teaching within the 8-year deadline, or if the student requests it.
We also know from the research that when you have some financial benefit through scholarships or grants, that it is going to directly affect the number of teachers of color that are going to benefit from that as well.
Margarita Bianco is working to get more teachers of color in schools nationwide through what's known as a Grow Your Own program. Pathways to Teaching works to help high school students see the potential for them to be teachers in their community.
Helping young people understand, one, the value that they bring because of their racial or ethnic makeup, their multilingual status. All of these things are super important. Also to help them understand the systems that disenfranchise them and how can they come back to make a change.
The pandemic has highlighted disparities in the education system, and she says that she's had a lot of districts contacting her recently about starting their own programs. The latest federal data shows around 80% of public school teachers are white women, and that is much different than the student population.
My own research with students, they talk about the need for that level of connection that they have with teachers of color that they might not otherwise have. And especially young men of color, talking about their real need to have other men of color in those leadership spaces. It's incredibly important for student success.
Pathways to Teaching currently has partnerships in the areas that you see on this map, and Bianco says that Grow Your Own programs have seen success with recruiting teachers. But one of the bigger challenges is retaining them in school districts. Now, many people are continuing to skip routine physicals during the pandemic, and ahead in our lineup, we'll talk about what one family discovered about their son during an appointment that could be a lesson for all of us. The U.S. is reaching COVID numbers again that we hoped would be behind us. This story starts the newsfeed. For the first time since February, the U.S. is seeing more than 100,000 new cases a day. The resurgence is being driven in states where a large part of the population remains unvaccinated. Pfizer is looking into possible side effects of a booster shot of its vaccine. It says so far, side effects seem to be similar to what we saw after the second dose. Now, while Israel is giving booster shots, the U.S. has not authorized a third shot yet. Doctors say tech upgrades have come fast in the pandemic. Google Cloud poll heard from 300 physicians who say they have tech now that would have typically taken years to get Healthcare is usually cautious in that area, but COVID has forced the industry to move faster. Almost 700 colleges across the country are now requiring students be vaccinated against COVID-19 if they want to be on campus. That is according to the Chronicle of Higher Education. But with fake vaccination cards being sold online, college officials are worried just how many students are buying them. An Associated Press report found several comments from college students on accounts selling the cards. Many athletes have had their sports canceled during the pandemic, and that meant that they didn't need to get a sports physical, something that can catch issues early. Dan Grossman introduces us to a student athlete who could have died if it wasn't for a routine physical and the lessons doctors say that we can all learn from it.
As soon as, they pull us up to the blocks and they say on your marks, it just kind of goes blank. I don't feel anything and I just go.
In high school track, hurdles measure exactly 39 inches high, spaced precisely 30 feet apart.
Some part of it is grace, like trying to be, fluid and everything like that.
They are obstacles Mateo Casados has spent a high school career perfecting.
Okay, so this is the prelims for the 110 high hurdles.
But of the hundreds, thousands he has effortlessly leapt with flawless grace, none have rivaled the one hurdle Mateo faced that was neither bound by height nor space.
And so I was lifting in the basement with my dad, and we had noticed it, I got through 50 sit-ups and 15 push-ups, whatever, and I was just dying. I thought I was gonna throw up, pass out, my arms were numb.
In high school sports, it's commonplace for teams to conduct routine physicals before the season to make sure everyone is up to operating speed. During the pandemic, that slowed immensely. A study by the American Diabetes Association found by as much as 43%. But a chance physical with a chance doctor last summer showed Mateo's heart was working slower than most.
Yeah, it was terrifying to not know what that meant for the future or even just for your child's life.
It was the first time Mom and Dad had heard the words anomalous coronary artery, a congenital heart defect that meant oxygen and nutrients weren't getting to Mateo's heart the same way they do most. In high school athletes, the condition can mean sudden and unpredictable death.
You never know what's going to happen going into surgery. There's a lot of risks, but fixing it was our concern. And, whether he ran again or not, we didn't know. It was a risk that we all had to take.
Doctors gave the family two options: limit Mateo's activity, which meant no track, no hiking, no strenuous activity of any kind, or open heart surgery.
I just wanted to get out of the way and get back to what I wanted to do. I guess that was kind of my attitude going into it.
How you been doing?
Good.
Good.
For a young adult who aspired to get a scholarship, win nationals, and compete at the highest level of his craft, the decision, no matter how risky, was obvious.
Ever since I was little, I loved playing soccer and doing those things, and giving it up would have been unimaginable. I didn't really want to live a life where I wasn't able to be active or go work out or, go on a hike.
Laps around a track turned into laps up and down a hallway. But bit by bit and day by day, Mateo started to simultaneously overcome the smallest yet largest hurdles of his life. By month 1, he could walk his first mile. By month 2, he could pick up weights more than 5 pounds. By February, 7 months after his open heart surgery, Mateo was ready to compete in his first race back at state. A race his dad was able to capture on video, where Mateo logged a personal record in the 60-meter hurdles, Mateo! Finishing second.
To see him finish his first race and to see his face, it was good. It was a highlight.
He just did this. Yes. And then after he said, he turned to me and he said, "I'm so strong, Mom." And I said, "I know."
Let's see, so this was from this year. This was the shootout. I took second in that race, or in that meet.
Now, Mateo is 2 weeks away from leaving for South Dakota School of Mines on a track scholarship, healthier than ever, all because of a routine physical.
So lucky that we saw that different doctor that we'd never seen before for a physical in the middle of COVID.
One that allowed this 18-year-old to prove he had more heart, a stronger heart, than a diagnosis that tried to prove otherwise.
He's living proof that if you put your mind to something, there are no limits on what you can do.
I'm Dan Grossman.
And finally in our lineup, a deadline is looming that could make the worker shortage even worse. We're looking into what's behind the big backlog in employment-based green cards. There's another threat to the worker shortage facing the nation. The U.S. is at risk of losing 100,000 employment-based green cards due to a pandemic backlog. It's impacting more than 1 million immigrants who have already been waiting months or even years for a green card.
We don't want these people to leave our country and go to other countries and contribute to their economies.
Immigration policy experts that we spoke with say in most cases, these are people who have decades of experience in their field and would be hard to replace if they left, and it's impacting tech employees from India the most.
I think what's important for people to understand is these are visa numbers that are authorized by Congress, and the only reason that they're not being issued is because of administrative processing delays.
Last October, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services started with 120,000 more green cards than usual, which was an effort to clear up the pandemic backlog. But things like staffing issues within the sector are what's putting such a high number at risk of expiring on September 30th. Now, if too many people waiting on a green card leave the U.S., it could be costly for companies that already have a high number of job openings.
Because if they're not filled, they aren't producing to their highest capacity. And that's harming everyone. That's harming consumers who are going to buy the products that these businesses are producing.
I mean, I think there are a number of things that the government can do to make their processing much more efficient. They should take away administrative barriers that sort of delay processing unnecessarily. They need to think creatively and come into this world of the pandemic of doing things remotely and virtually.
Immigration Services has not said yet if it plans to change its processing protocol to try and beat that September 30th deadline. Now, this is a summer camp whose lessons are different than many, focusing on race.
I don't really think there's a reason to be racist because it's just a skin color.
Tomorrow, what the parents of these students say is the biggest benefit of a summer school devoted to discussing and learning about race in our country.
25 Sports Update with WTAW Zach Taylor.
Hey KRHD viewers, former Florida State coach Bobby Bowden has passed away at age 91. Bowden won over 300 games and 2 national titles in Tallahassee. When he retired in 2009, he was succeeded by offensive coordinator Jimbo Fisher. Of course, Fisher is now entering year 4 as the head man at Texas A&M. He and the guys held an open practice yesterday at Kyle Field. They're back at it again today as they get ready for September 4th season opener against Kent State. From the WTAW Sports Studio, I'm Zach Taylor.
Jimmy Kimmel is up next. Good Morning Texas is on the air tomorrow at 5 a.m. Thanks for joining us. Have